And what I would like to do is I would like each one of you to introduce yourself kindly. I'm going to keep the screen up while everyone goes through and introduces themselves. And then I'm going to take it down and I'm going to be asking you some questions about your experience with the projects that you are co-leading together. So perhaps we can start with the first project here. So perhaps we can start with Joanne and Heather.
Hi, you can hear me okay?
I hear you loud and clear, Joanne.
Perfect, thank you. Heather and her IT guy were very instrumental in helping me solve some problems. Awesome.
I love that.
So my name's Joanne Mozelle. I live in Montreal, my family, and the topic of my project is very near and dear to my heart as somebody coming from the rare disease. We really need help in writing lay summaries or yes, making available lay summaries of scientific evidence for patients. And it's been an incredible experience working with Heather. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Heather Colquhoun. Also an incredible privilege and amazing to work with Joanne Mozelle. I am a researcher. I'm at the University of Toronto. I'm an occupational therapist, an Evidence Alliance member, a scoping review enthusiast. And yeah, that's me. And doing one of these projects, which is just like made my decade.
Great, thank you. And can I pass it to Bev and Lindsay next?
Great, thank you, Andrea. So I'm Bev Pomeroy, one of the patient partners involved in this program. I'm here in the Snowy cultural families here on Southern Gulf Island in BC. I'm super grateful to be here and to have partnered with Lindsay Jibb, who's my new best friend. And our project really is looking at the intersection of trauma and grief and what kind of resources are there and what is our understanding of this intersection of trauma and grief for parents and caregivers of children with complex care needs.
That's great. I love that you're best friends now. That's amazing. I love to hear that. I'm going to pass it to Elliot and Elaine next.
What about Lindsay?
I'm sorry, Lindsay. I just went right over you when Bev said BFFs. I got all excited there. Sorry, no, Lindsay. You go next.
Yeah. So it's my pleasure to be here. With Bev, who is really truly my new BFF, and I am a scientist track investigator at the Hospital for Sick Children, and also a researcher at U of T. My research focuses on the psychosocial care of children with cancer and their families, with a particular interest in family caregivers, and so. It's been my pleasure and privilege to be able to work with Bev on this important review.
Okay, sorry. Now Elliot and Elaine, thank you.
So I'm Elaine PausJenssen. I've been a long time member of the Alliance, and I'm a retired social worker. And it's just as unbelievable to me to be working with Elaine and her wonderful team in Halifax. I'm in Saskatoon on a topic that's been near and dear to my heart too for many, many years, really a couple of decades, and that is the care of older adults who have complex ongoing care needs. Institutionalization has been the default, is the default, and it's just really nice to be wonderful to be looking at alternatives and how effective they are.
And I'm Elaine Moody, been referred to as the other half of our co-leadership team, and it's been a pleasure. I'm an assistant professor at Dalhousie University, located here in Halifax in the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation and talking about our project related to long-term care needs of older folks with complex care needs.
Excellent, thank you so much. So I'm going to stop the share. And I'm going to ask some questions here that have been prepared. And you know what, I like to switch things up. So I can see Heather's face. So I'm gonna go off the script a little bit. And what I'm gonna ask is, I mean, we heard a little bit of it when our patient partners introduce themselves, but I want to hear a little bit about why you chose this topic and why you were just so incredibly passionate about it, just so that everyone knows these topics came from these individuals. So they thought of this is something that, you know, they have been, perhaps they've been working on, or something that they've been incredibly, thinking about and clearly passionate about. So perhaps we can, and you kind of mentioned it when you introduced yourself, but would love to hear a little bit more about why that topic and why is that topic important to you? And I'm happy for anyone to go first.
Okay, I'll go first.
Thank you.
So it's actually my naivete that brought me here.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about research. I'm a CPA by training. So that's an accountant who relies on numbers and thinks only numbers are the most important thing. And so when my son was born and I guess milestones were not being met, well, that's like a completely different world, and turned out to be a very rare disease. So he's 35. So this is a long time ago. Which led to incorrect information, misinformation, lack of information, all kinds of wrong, just no help at all. And so from there, it was just a long series of very similar types of experiences going through the healthcare system. No answers, again, wrong information. That's really hard to jump off of. When you have wrong information to begin with. And so I always felt that it was science. It was really science. It was going to be foundational basic science that was going to help. And it's been just so interesting over the past few years to see the power of technology. And now I see the professions that are growing, biostatisticians, bioinformatics, all these new words for me. But I see the just incredible power, and it's so exciting because once we have the tech, it's there. And then the people who are still working through it, and they're asking for, they know there's a lot of data. They're looking for meaning. They're looking to use it in meaningful ways. And so I'm saying, well, there's lots of ways you could be using it. And so I guess that's what brought me here. And I'm so really humbled and honored to be able to collaborate on this project and move forward, because it's really very, very meaningful, like totally meaningful.
Thank you so much. Yes, we got a lot of interest on this project, Joanne, and I'm getting emails all the time. What's an update? How's it going? Can you give us information? So you were spot on on how important this topic is. So thank you for bringing that to the Alliance, and thank you. It sounds like a little bit working outside of your comfort zone, and I'm seeing a big nod. That's what I'm hearing from you, and thank you for taking that risk and for doing that. I think that's just amazing, and it takes something. So I do want to acknowledge you, Joanne, for doing that. And so would anyone else like to share? So Sabrina so kindly typed it in the box. Why did you choose your topic, and why is this topic important to you?
Yeah, I'm happy to go next. Obviously, being patient partners, the work that we're doing is incredibly personal. So what a privilege to have an opportunity to take our experience and actually be able to learn from it, but also teach those in healthcare. So, sort of trauma warning, my child, Sophia, died 5 years ago at the age of 16 from a pretty rare complex condition. So I was her family caregiver for 16 years. So our sort of study rationale, I just know anecdotally, my experience physiologically being a caregiver of a child who has a complex care need 24/7. So Sophia required G-tube feeds, injections every 3 hours, oxygen, you name it. Incredible young woman, but needed a lot of care. And we did have a lot of nursing care, but what that impact had on our family and on myself, just from a psychological perspective, never mind physiological. So after Sophia died, 2 weeks later, I ended up in the hospital, had a cardiac episode, had the grief streak. So just physically how my body was responding. And typically in pediatric palliative care and bereavement, you are supported up until sort of year 3 post bereavement. And you can continue, but there really is not a lot of knowledge on how to support us. And I started to sort of understand that really this is about an intersection of trauma and grief. This isn't just about bereavement. This isn't just about my experience as a caregiver. What is that intersection? Started doing some research and was not shocked to find out that some initial articles that I had found were that only 5% of bereft parents continue to function steadily well after losing a child, many years after losing a child. So only 5% steadily well, being interpretive. So that leaves 95 of us out here who are not functioning steadily well. Poor you that has to run into us at the grocery store. You know, so I really wanted to look into that. And that's why I submitted this project, and really about having parents sort of understand, what does that look like, this intersection of trauma and grief? How do we know it's there? And then really sort of coming up with better tools for screening and recognizing, and how do we support parents in this world of bereavement that we have currently here in, well, I mean, across the world, but here in particular in Canada. So that was sort of my precipice for starting this project. So super grateful. I was working on it a long time before. So it was nice to now have this team to support that. So thank you, Andrea and SPOR.
Thank you so much, Bev. You know, we've been working together for a few years and I haven't fully heard your story. And that is just so inspirational. And I want to thank you for the courage of sharing that and for all that you do. You are an inspiration. And just like, I'm kind of at a loss for words. This is just, yeah, thank you. Thank you. We're so appreciative for you to share and for doing this. And I think this is just so incredibly important, what you're doing and what you're up to. And I want to acknowledge you, Bev, for everything. So thank you so much.
Okay, I guess that leaves me as the last one. And I too want to pay tribute to Joanne and to Beverley for sharing their stories. And I understand the passion that would come from having a child that requires a lot of care and then one who dies. My experience is very different. I don't have anything like that. And I think it's for this reason that I have always preferred to call myself a public partner, because I don't have a story of that kind. However, what really surprised me, I was talking to Elaine about this, is how emotional I felt about this topic and how that affected my, especially beginning work on it. And I found it very strange, because really the experience that made me think about how do we care for these older people that I have had the privilege of working with as a social worker for so many years. My experience was a happy one. My mother lived in Halifax, not in Saskatoon. And so in Saskatoon, she would have had no choice but to go to long-term care at a critical point in her life. And in Halifax, she didn't have to. She was able to get the services she needed at home. And it absolutely blew my mind that this was possible, because I'd only worked in Saskatoon and it would not have been possible here. I knew, because these are the people I work with. And so it really started me thinking. I too, like Joanne, felt like a fish out of water. And I was a clinician. I'm an advocate. I'm not a researcher. And so actually I was on the knowledge translation committee with which Heather was chairing, and if Heather hadn't taken me by the hand, I would not be here, because I had no confidence at all in terms of doing this. And so it's just been a privilege. So with Heather's encouragement, and then getting to know Elaine and her team, her wonderful team in Halifax, I don't feel like a fish out of water anymore. It's just a real privilege. And I thank you for the opportunity.
It's great. Thank you so much, Elliot, for sharing about your mother and sharing and talking about the disparities in our health system, right? Talking about differences
Absolutely.
across provinces, which is so
Yes,
important
huge.
and something we forget about, right? So really important that you highlighted that. And thank you so much, Elliot. And you've been with us since the very beginning and so great to have you. And also great to hear that you had the mentorship of Heather. And I'm not surprised that she was able to help you through that. So I do want to acknowledge the researchers here as well for these are our first projects done this way, and I know this is being done very differently, and we're asking a lot of you in terms of doing things differently, right? And I know it's a pleasure working with our amazing patient partners here, but I'm sure that there's been some maybe opportunities. Right, so this will go to the scripted question next, which is, what has been maybe the most rewarding part of working together, and maybe what are some opportunities, maybe some things that have arisen from this collaboration that you didn't think of or were kind of unanticipated. And I'm happy for anyone to answer in any order. So there's no set preset order here.
I'm happy to go.
Oh, thanks, yeah.
I think, Joanne, I don't think neither one of us actually said anything about our project. So I think people, we both forgot that. I think people have seen the title, but just so that everyone kind of knows that this project, it's Joanne's project. What we're going to be doing is summarizing all the evidence on the writing of lay summaries. So what they should look like and how they should be written. And knowing that very little of it will be focused on patient or public partners or probably developed with their interests, we're then going to do quite a detailed consultation exercise and a scoping review to contextualize all the information to the needs and preferences of patient partners and hopefully develop an output that is patient partner derived and focused. So that's what we're doing. So yeah, the new learning, it's been so fantastic. I feel, I'm trying really hard to be true to the true co-leadership. So I think, we especially in the Evidence Alliance, have been doing a fair amount of patient or public partner engagement, but these projects are about co-leadership. So this is Joanne's project, right? And I'm sort of hitched on for a ride in a sense, right? And I can't forget that. So I'm trying so hard to not let go of that. And so I think it's really stretched my skills. And in a really fantastic way. It's very different than your classic researcher PI leadership and the way researchers work. I've realized that we have this sort of code. We have this sort of structure, and there's no manual. It's not written anywhere, but we know it. And so I've never had that, so challenged. And I'm trying to forget that code book and do a new code book. And I remember even the day thinking to myself, I was talking to Joanne about lay summaries and thinking, yeah, why do researchers write lay summaries? No one taught us to speak like that. We'd be terrible at it. And so maybe it also is not patient partners that need support. Joanne doesn't like that word. I'm trying to use a different word, Joanne. Trying to help patient partners. Maybe it's the researchers that need more help. So that way has really changed. So my brain is really looking at things through a very different lens, and I'm really, really enjoying it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Heather. So I'm hearing some kind of common themes like being stretched. This is something different. Everyone seems to be learning as they go. Kind of pushed outside of your comfort zone. And I love that, hitched on for a ride. That's lovely. I'm going to use that. I like that one. That's really great. Would anyone like to add to what Heather said?
I would just like to say it's an incredible mentorship. I have never had mentorship like this in my previous career or anywhere. I was thinking about the rewards. Yeah, meeting new people, diverse backgrounds, opportunities to learn. So I did confidence, great literature. So now my library is growing and growing. I'm learning about scoping reviews. But the mentorship we talked about, or in my courses, I've taken 3 courses in patient partner involvement, and they talk about the people and the relationships. And I never really thought it was relevant and that pertinent or that important, but I see now, she's mentored me, always been yes. Whenever I have a question, it's like I get yes instead of no, because I've had a lot of that in my life with my son. So if I'd like more training, can you please explain this? Why is this important? Yes, the protocols, like all that, the work plans, all the documentation and the whole process and publishing. And so it's been, it's like a one-on-one, I'm getting one-on-one help.
That's fantastic. No, I love that. I love the focus on the mentorship and really working together and figuring this out together is just really amazing. Elaine, yes.
Yeah, I'll just pipe in. Certainly, I would agree with previous comments about researchers kind of having a code that they use, and we have certain goals that we're trying to reach and certain processes for getting there, and fitting what we're doing with the co-leads into that system is certainly a challenge. You know, we have a topic that's really important in practice, but you know, finding literature and sorting through the literature and getting the words right and the process right to capture what we're doing has been a challenge. But one of the things that has come out of this, particularly doing a review, which is the most academic of academic pursuits, is really personalizing or humanizing the process. So thinking about, I mean, Elliot mentioned earlier how emotional the process can be, and how we have several citizen partners on our team, and for them it is personal. It's about, you know, living in the community and supporting their loved ones, and so it's really taught me to slow down and to think about relationships not only with the co-lead but with the rest of the team. And thinking more about how we can make this review something personal that will be meaningful. It's been great.
No, that's great, Elaine. Thank you for sharing. And I really love that personalizing and humanizing the process. That's really great. And slowing things down and thinking about the relationships like across the entire team, right? And how do we build on those? So that's really great and incredibly insightful. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything that anyone else would like to add for this question?
I just wanted to sort of certainly support what's already been said, and then maybe just add a couple perspectives, at least from my end. And I really, what Heather speaks to about this kind of researcher code book, especially when it relates to literature reviews, really resonates with me. But I think that the partnership that we have has added so much to that code book from kind of a practice point of view. So in improving the code book, making the science better. Our PICO question, I don't think I've ever done a review where I've had such a well-considered and then I think strong questions, strong outcomes, strong plan for a literature review than this review. So that has been incredible. And then the personalization that Elaine speaks about also really resonates with me. It's been my privilege to learn from Bev in so many different ways, and I can speak hopefully on behalf of my team here who love this project. I can barely pull them away to do other projects because they really want to get going on this. They're so excited. And I think that comes from this personalization, this heart and soul that Bev's project has within it, that people really just it attracts people, and they want to be part of it, even in a small way.
Oh, I love that, Lindsay. And you know, I think it might be surprising to some that this engagement is leading to better science, right? And I think that's just something that is going to be very enlightening from these projects, right? And talking about working with individuals who have the lived experience, and you're going to develop that PICO like you've never been able to develop that before, right? And how important that is for the science. So I think that that's just really huge and really insightful. And I really love how you said that the project has heart and soul. I think that that's really also something that will stay with me. So thank you for sharing that. And so we've heard a lot from the researcher side about some of the rewards and challenges. Perhaps some of the patients would like to share some things that maybe have been rewarding, or some things that you think we could, some of the challenges perhaps.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, the reward is this project unto itself. I think one of the greatest rewards for me is having Lindsay and her kick-ass team, be, I don't want to say at my beck and call, because not necessarily, but they are incredibly responsive. And, as patient partners, or as caregivers, or as patients or members of the public, we often in our healthcare journey are really slogging along, and not always leading, these journeys. So to have, or being well supported. So to have this team, for me, I think is an incredible gift, to have a group of people who know what they're doing, but at the same time have humility and curiosity to, instead of, we think about capacity development, and often that comes from a place of deficit. But what I see our team and what I see this project doing is really about capacity bridging, which is just adding to. It's not taking away from a process. It's not taking away from the rigidity of science and research that we know is important to do good work, but it's adding to. And that's the part that I love so much. And I think it's a huge benefit. I think one of the biggest challenges in my experience, and it's not to do with the team or anything like that, is I think, and we're grateful to be funded. I think that is one of the biggest challenge, is the funding and the timelines. To do this work well, if we're looking at engaging with patients and the public, I'm part of the queer community. We're a little bit of the untouched. I'm a bereft parent. We're also untouched, so to do this work well, it takes time, and to have a meaningful conversation, and to really build trust and respect, and open up that Pandora's box to what great work we can do. But funders are still using traditional frameworks that continue to sort of suppress and oppress different hardly reached communities, or traditionally underserved. So that is my challenge to funders and those in the world of research, is let's think about that differently, and how can we better fund that, and look at these funding models so that we can encourage true, rich, deep engagement in a safe and meaningful way.
That's fantastic. No, thank you so much again for your courage and for sharing this, Bev. I really liked the capacity bridging point that you made. I think that's a great way to frame it. And also, acknowledging that this work does take time to do it well, and it takes time to build that trust and respect. And I completely agree. I think we have to challenge not only our funders, but all of us as researchers, that we need to do things differently. To make sure that we are able to work with those who have inequities and health inequities, and make sure that people's voices who weren't traditionally heard are being heard. So I completely agree with you. And you have our commitment that we did get funding from CIHR to do 20 more projects like this, but we need to do more. That's not enough, so we'll all work together on that in terms of sustainability. And thank you so much for bringing that up. Yeah, I think it's really important. We need more mechanisms for work like this. I think it's definitely something that we need to focus on in the future. And so if I may, I'm going to kind of, because there's been a little bit of a theme here about communication and about timeliness. I'm hearing responsiveness in some of these responses from individuals. So I'm wondering if I can move on to maybe some tips. So what were some communication practices that you felt help, ensure a respectful, timely, and clear communication on the team? So is there any tips to the teams who will be doing some of these projects in terms of communication strategies?
I think that number one is having an initial meeting between the co-leads, where they can get to know each other and their views on the project and why they're doing the project, and working out various things, but just getting to know one another. I think that initial meeting is absolutely key.
Thank you so much, Elliot. And I would say that that actually came up in some of our patient evaluation. Is that sometimes with the researchers, we didn't do the best job, and I know I'm guilty of this, we didn't do the best job of allowing everyone to really introduce themselves and kind of get to know each other. So I think that's something, it's been a good learning lesson for me, and I completely agree with you. So even spending, you know, a half an hour of that first initial meeting just for us to chit chat and kind of get to know each other and build that relationship is just so key. And then sometimes something we forget about as researchers, we're busy, we're trying to get things done, but we also, you know, this is doing things a little differently, and we need to allow more time for everything so that we get to know each other and really develop that trust and confidence in each other. Thank you for sharing that. Any other tips?
We have a standing meeting time that was done. So that's helpful because it goes into the calendar. So we know we're going to be meeting on a regular basis. We can email and we get prompt replies, that was mentioned before. So feeling free to email at any time. Then we would transition to Zoom if it was necessary. And I had asked Heather at the beginning, I said, how do you want to run the meetings? Do you want us to like raise our hand first? Like the protocol that I guess originally Zoom was set up with, no, you have to do this and you have to do that and do this and don't do that. But she said like, no, just jump in, just like stop me, just raise your, you know, what, because I have used this hand, not that hand. So it made it a lot more relaxing, and it became a brave space because I didn't have to worry about all the other protocol issues.
Oh, that's great. So it was like a time that you kind of look forward to then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's great. And Heather, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple things I was going to mention. One, I always sort of feel like 1.5 hours is the new 1 hour. Like there are no 1 hour meetings. And I think that's part of just ensuring there's time and space. We keep on having meetings that are at least 1.5 hours. And I always start with, well, we might not need this whole 1.5 hours, but of course we do need the whole 1.5 hours. So no meetings are 1 hour. And the second thing I was going to say, and you know, I think this worked well, but one of the things we did is we had Joanne meet individually and also as a group with our other 2 patient partners on the team without me. And that I think, you know, Joanne can comment on that after if she wants to, but I think it sort of was helpful in Joanne's confidence building. And so I think that, you know, depending on the patient partners, having a meeting that she was leading without me there, who might end up kind of taking over, not meaning to, but in supporting her, that kind of thing. So I think that was actually something that has worked well.
I'm seeing Joanne nod her head in agreement, Heather, so it sounds like it. So having opportunities for different people to interact, and maybe not the researcher lead, but maybe the research staff interacting with the patient partners. And yeah, that's a great idea as well. And Elaine, oh, sorry, Joanne, go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
Maybe I should put up my hand. Because
no, it's all good.
When I attend like the meetings with the patient advisors network, some of the gurus in patient engagement, they often talk about the vulnerabilities of patient partners, how vulnerable we are, had the power imbalance. Boy, I heard that throughout in all the 3 courses I took. And so I think it's a good idea. You know, also you may be the only lonely patient partner or some 2. And I think it's really important, I think, for confidence building, like you were saying, to sort of get your team there, your own group, yeah, to meet and get to know each other. And I learned so much from them. It's amazing. Thank you.
That's great. No, I agree. And that actually will lead me to the next question, Joanne. I'm going to let Elaine mention her comment first, so because her hand is up, and then I'll move on.
Yeah, I was just building on Elliot's point about having time for a conversation. We've had a few meetings, just Elliot and I, which I also find to be really valuable. Our research team meetings can be so packed with decision-making items and really intense, but having some time that's less structured to talk about some of the key concepts and ways to move forward. And I think it comes back to like how the the citizen partners are working together as well. That's something that's come up. So thinking about how that role, how those roles in that group are going to contribute to the project in more depth has been useful.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Elaine. And so I just kind of wanted to pick up off of something that Joanne had mentioned, because I don't want to lose it. And I think this is so important, Joanne, what you're saying. How do we create a brave space to ensure equal engagement across the team? And I completely agree with you. I think there is a power dynamic, absolutely. Like you said, it was talked about in every course. You know, and so what can we do to facilitate that, and how can we ensure that people feel safe speaking up and feel that we really want to hear your opinions and hear your voice? And Bev, I see your hand.
Yeah, I guess this is sort of my passion piece in a lot of the work that I do around patient engagement or engagement in general. You know, being a queer person as well and coming into this world of patient-oriented research, you know, we think about the ethics of the backside of research, of when we have participants and subjects of research. And while we sort of lean into integrity for when we're doing patient partnerships, you know, I think we're starting to understand there has to be some sort of framework or understanding around how to create this space where we can have a brave space where we can all work together and we can make the best of this project. And in BC, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard me talk about this, is we've been sort of co-designing and implementing a novel trauma resiliency informed practice patient engagement framework, which again, adding the resiliency piece, the activating resiliency piece, sort of incorporating self-compassion, self-reflection, activating resiliency, this idea around post-traumatic growth. And sort of I go into most of our meetings this way and try to model it in everything that I do. And I know our team and Lindsay seems to do it quite naturally, where we come in and when we think about activating resiliency, it's around, you know, what is the care and connectedness that we bring together as a team? What does care and connectedness look like for Lindsay and her team, and vice versa? What do I need to feel cared for and connected in this project? You know, where are the opportunities to contribute? And the third piece to that is the clarity of expectations. And that for me is the perfect framework, I think, for patient engagement and how we do this work really well. And there's a mutuality to it for us in our team. You know, we are dealing with pretty sensitive topics. You know, like my experience is traumatic. Every time I tell my story, it activates trauma amongst me and a million other people that I share it with. And, you know, I'm not naive to that. I know that that's the case. Being a member of the queer community, same thing. Our experience in healthcare is absolutely atrocious. So coming into a research team, I'm bringing that experience with me. So again, how does that team allow me to be my best and be able to inform and influence in the best way possible? And I think we're starting to learn, like I said, these different frameworks that are coming about to do this work and to do it really well. And having said that, Lindsay and her team are incredibly humble. They come into it with a lot of curiosity and kindness, and just, you know, definitely get the sense of having kindred spirits in that room.
That's so great. Thank you so much, Bev. And I think that's so important, coming to it with that humbleness, that curiosity, kindness. I think that's just such great advice. And when you are finished with your trauma-informed patient engagement tool, please share, or if you can continue sharing that with us, because I think that's something that you know, will be incredibly useful. And so, you know, we would love to learn from that, Bev, and implement that and use that in these projects and in this relationship building. I think it's really important. I know we do need more funding, Bev. It's we're going to work together on this, I promise. And I saw Lindsay, you had your you took your mute off. So did you want to add to this discussion?
Not too much. I mean, Bev,
Okay.
I'm sure it's obvious to everyone, is absolutely incredible in every way, and I think she nailed that response and really kind of took the words out of my mouth with regard to how we approach it. So I think from our team's point of view, being humble and really just shutting up and kind of listening a lot of the time, I think, I hope helps to create this brave space that ultimately I think will drive the project forward, and then hopefully further projects. And I see Bev is focused on funding, which her and I have both talked about previously. So I think just this project is hopefully just a jumping off point for more work that we can all do together, taking these kind of lessons that we've talked about today forward.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. We need a Jibb Pomeroy Research Institute. I love that. Yes, we do. That's amazing. Heather, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, I love this question because I think it's nice to be reminded, because I was like, how are we doing that? Are we doing that? And sort of tried to sort of think, and Joanne and I had a conversation about it earlier this week. But, you know, I was really struck by something Joanne was talking about earlier about, you know, having a co-lead that's really responsive on email. And I think that that's actually a really important part of the brave space, because you know, going back to the researcher code book, right? If someone doesn't get back to you for 2 or 3 weeks, it doesn't mean they don't care, right? But I think we need a different structure for this. So I think part of that brave space is making sure the patient partner knows how much they matter to me. And so as you're sort of getting used to that, like, you know, it could be that our code book is full of all sorts of rude behavior. We just put up with it. And so maybe that's what we have to look at. And then the second thing I was going to say is, you know, when we had our first meeting, we all went around and shared what we wanted to get out of this project. And one of our patient partners, who I won't name, said she really wanted to have fun. And I, as a researcher, that, you know, be efficient, get the project done, you know, that it's almost, you know, for a lot of researchers, if we have fun as a secondary objective, we're really happy. But this put that front and center. And you know, I don't want it to sound, I'm not intending to sound trivial. This has been really big for me to really sort of say, yeah, you know what, that actually is an objective. And I've been taking that to other projects. And so that's been something different for me, but hopefully that's creating a brave space.
Yeah, I love that. Let's have some fun, right? Why not? This could be very hard work that we're doing, and how can we make it fun for people and enjoyable? And how do we let our patient partners know how much they matter to us? I think that's just amazing advice. And actually kind of gets into you know, thinking about getting into more advice, you know, so we've done these kind of 3 projects here that we're showcasing today. Not that we've done them, but we are all working on them, right? And so thinking that now we are committed to doing 20 projects like this, and then maybe scaling that up even more, right? Wouldn't that be fun, Bev and everyone? Right, scaling that later on. So what advice would you have for those teams working together? And I mean, we've talked a lot about this, like the mutuality, the humbleness, curiosity, kindness, listening, being responsive, telling each other how much they matter, having fun. You know, are there other practical things that we could share with the teams that will be embarking on these projects coming up?
I guess maybe I'll jump in just really quickly around any research. So when I first started bringing up this idea of patient-initiated research, the pushback that I got every single time was, well, there's, you know, research has rigor, and I guess part of my advice or encouragement is that we can do this research and still have the rigor of science and evidence behind it. It can be done. These 3 projects are proving it. It's being proven in the UK and the US are starting to do those projects. So really, like, yes, hold on to that, but just, you know, again, to add on to that, this piece with patient-initiated, patient-driven research is one piece of advice. And something I'm learning in sort of the mindful self-compassion, my friend Marika Sandrelli always tells me, practice makes practice. So, you know, this is ongoing work. It's iterative, and we're learning every single time we do it. This is not a one and done. We're learning as we're going. going, and just really, if you're going through these projects, you know, just be nimble and be flexible, and you know, kind of be like a little octopus in the water that's like swimming around, and you've got all these tentacles and all these things that we're doing, but still have some of that fluidity that I think we need to do this work. But again, practice makes practice.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bev. It reminded me of that movie. Remember that movie with the octopus? That man, did anyone see that on Netflix? Yeah, Heather, I forget the name of it.
It's called My Octopus Teacher.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, I love that. That's great. That's absolutely amazing. And I know Dr. Tayabatha, you've had your hand up. I did want to get through some of the questions, and happy for you to ask your question right now. Yeah.
It's more of a comment, actually.
Okay, sure.
I've been working with SPOR for some time, and what I think separates SPOR from other research initiatives is that finally we are getting to a point where instead of just focusing on the objective elements of research, which of course we know the scientists bring to the equation, we are also bringing in a subjective context to the research, where we are bringing in compassion and empathy. So all of these projects are informed by stories, by events, by experiences. And I think this is what is separating SPOR's work from others. And I think this could be a start of a new element in research projects as we move forward.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And sorry, it took me a little while to get to you. I love that. Like, I absolutely agree. So bringing the compassion, the empathy to the research, and bringing the stories to the research and the real lived experience. And we need that. And I think that betters the science as we're hearing today. And it also makes it more impactful. Right. So I completely agree with you. And I agree that we need to change the way that we do things. And that's why we're so excited about these projects, because they are different and they are important. And it is changing the way the status quo, which we need to do. So thank you for sharing that. And so was there any other advice that people, we do have until 2:10, so we do have a few more minutes. So, you know, any other advice that this amazing panel would like to share with all of us here today?
Well, I would say I would recommend to the patient partners, if they are interested, to read their co-lead's bio and see what they're interested in, and read some of their abstracts, perhaps. And also ask what documents will be generated, because we've taken some courses, and probably the more experience you have on projects, the better idea you'll have. But if you're coming in new, so what documents are generated? There will be a work plan, there will be a listing of search terms, there will be a protocol, there will be these types of things. And for the researchers, find out or ask, if you can, the experience of your patient partners. I think it's critical. And Heather had a different spin on my take of, well, it depends, because I'm always saying, my answer is, well, it depends. It depends on this, it depends on your target audience, it depends how much they know, it depends their interest, etc. And she said, yeah, but that it depends, it's not that helpful. And that was absolutely true. I mean, that was a truth I needed to hear, because at a certain point, you're not going to go anywhere and you won't get any meaningful information. So she brings me back to, okay, focus and make some assumptions. And I was reading one article, and it said, I guess it was in the gray literature, about what does your audience need to know? And the second question is, what can you assume they already know? Because the number one was know your target audience. That was in there. No, but that's a very difficult question to answer sometimes, especially when you're writing lay summary. So I'm trying to get away from this, well, it depends thing, and look at some brought principles and guidelines to help us navigate this very challenging space and bridge. It's a big wide bridge of, no, we have to get something in that's going to be helpful and meaningful and usable and understandable, but not be so vague that context becomes everything.
Yeah, that's helpful. And I really, what I like in that example, Joanne, is how you and Heather are kind of working together and co-creating that and working that out. So, so I think that's really, really, really fantastic to see and to hear. So thank you for sharing that really practical example. And I love the tip to read the bio, see what they're interested in, and see if that's a match for you, right? So I think that's really important. Yes, Elaine.
Yeah, just something that came out talking to Heather and Joanne is that you have some principles or values that your team uses to guide your work. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about that, because I was really intrigued and I've been thinking about that a bit more.
Sorry, who were you asking?
You can
Elaine,
start,
all of
Joanne.
us?
If yeah, do you want to start?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. Values or principles that guide how you work together as a team?
Oh, okay.
Like that list, Joanne, that we remember you started it at the very beginning, and now we have this sort of list that we had at our first meeting about the principles that we were going to operate by. I think that's what Elaine means.
Oh, okay. Oh, being respectful and communicating timeliness, basically timeliness. I was thinking of principles in terms of getting the work done in a new way. And yet, I guess that's been mentioned before, but like I'm thinking of like the same thing is pretty much in accounting, because it's very similar when you're attesting to the validity of financial information and you go through processes to ensure that it's reliable, number one, and then that it's substantive, and it's been very technically oriented. You can have a financial statement like this and it's not going to tell you how to run a business. So this is kind of, I see this parallels here. There's a lot more to it. And I'm seeing now, even with accounting, they're starting to bring in other terms. They're talking about sustainability. They're talking about fairness. They're talking, again, with all the eco centers and with COVID, how do you value assets where there's so much uncertainty? And again, there's uncertainty in research as well. So yeah, so like I say to Heather, yes, my feeling, be open-minded, but try and be focused at the same time. Be open-minded, because I've had to be really open-minded, and she's been really open-minded, I mean, to hear from my side as well. So I guess that would be the values and principles.
Yeah, that's great. That's lovely. I love that you started with a list. Heather, you may need to share your list. It sounds like it got bigger as the time went on. So I really like that. That would be very practical.
Yeah, and we're trying, not every meeting, but we're due to do it again. Every couple of meetings, we bring them out again to just sort of regroup. Like, is there anything new here? Is this still how we want to operate, how we want to treat each other, how we want to make decisions, etc. So
that's fantastic. And Bev, you put the TRIP principles, which I've heard you mention before. Can you, not everyone knows those, so can you explain those?
Yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of people are familiar with TIP, trauma-informed practice, and there are some principles, and thanks to our Indigenous and Aboriginal partners here in BC and throughout the world, we've added a few more principles based on one of the longest studies that Warner has done, the Kauai study, where we looked at resiliency and what those key pieces are. So these are those key pieces. So care and connectedness, if we're thinking of patient engagement in research, so care and connectedness. So Lindsay and I having that conversation and really sort of deciding, well, what does care and connectedness look between the two of us and on our team? And it could be timeliness, it could be responsiveness, it could be send me a bulk order of Maltesers, whatever that happens to be, and that connectedness, whatever, like, is it text, is it phone, is it Zoom? that sort of question to ask each other. Opportunities to contribute, which is really why we're here as patient partners, is, you know, I want to look at my experience and I want to find purpose in the loss of my child. I want to have opportunities to contribute. So what does that look like? Is it being part of the PICO study? Is it being part of some of the other work that the team's doing? They've unfortunately given me access to Covidence, an extraordinary platform that I'm now going to take advantage of. So, you know, so what does that look like? And then clarity of expectations, which I think is probably one of the biggest things to abate any conflict on teams, which is, we're going to do this project. This is sort of what our expected outcomes are. You know, the clarity of expectations. If we have this meeting on this day, this is what you're going to expect from that meeting. So really those clarity of expectations that our project isn't a one and done. It's not going to change the universe for parents who've lost children, but what are we going to get? What are our expectations? And that framework has worked really successfully. We've done a lot of evaluations on that particular framework and engagement with some really great success. So that's sort of the principles that I tend to lead into, and that Lindsay's team has graciously sort of modeled as well as we've been doing this work. But Lindsay, feel free to add to that or comment.
I entirely agree, and maybe the only thing that I would add, and this is just from my, you know, researcher code book point of view, is to consider that you don't know what you don't know with respect to those opportunities to contribute. And so Bev and I have spoken about this before, but we had kind of a little bit of the project where we needed to get into the nitty gritty, send the lit search to librarian, and I kind of just handled it because I thought it was, to be honest, below Bev's pay grade. I thought, oh, she won't want to deal with this. But then Bev said, you know, can I have a look at it? And that her feedback was incredible. We ended up revamping it. We met with the librarian. I feel more confident about sort of where we ended up because of that. So just that kind of consideration to open up opportunities at all kind of spaces, places along the research road.
That's great. So opening things up, and I really like that you don't know what you don't know. So coming from that perspective, because that really comes from a place of inquiry and really getting to understand and really getting into the lived experience world, right? And coming from there. I think that's really a really helpful suggestion, Lindsay, for the researchers. And I wanted to make sure that Elliot had a chance to offer some advice to the either the patient partners or the research teams for these 20 next patient-driven co-led projects that we're planning to do.
Well, I think that's one of the main things is for everybody to realize that we're on an ongoing learning experience. I remember reading one time, and I thought it was a really good quote. It was that co-leadership is it requires commitment, and it's a skill that all of us need to develop. So it's something that all of us need to work on and develop, and that we may start off in one way, but as we develop, it may take a different path. We may do things in a different way as we go along than we started off, and just to be open to that. And I also would like to say to people that I think that there are lots of people out there who have ideas, and maybe they need encouragement. And I think that I would say to everybody here, listen to people that you know and encourage them if they have an idea to write it out. Give them some help if they need it, and a hand, and see what happens. Because I never thought that this topic, ours, wasn't even framed. The first task, and it was just a delight to me to see how Elaine and her team took my sort of vague concerns about the healthcare delivery to older adults with complex needs, and had a research project. And when it was formed, I thought, yes, that's it. And so I think that encouraging people who don't feel they have the confidence to go forward is really, really important. I guess that would be my last word to everybody here, is please do that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Elliot, and thank you for reminding us of the ongoing learning opportunities here, the commitment that we're making to each other doing this, being open and flexible and adaptable. I think that's so important, especially in science and especially in this co-creation world that we're all working in, and giving encouragement and helping and supporting each other and coming from that mindset, coming from a supportive mindset. So I think those are amazing, amazing words to end with, Elliot. So I want to, as the chair, I think we can continue talking about this for hours, right? This is something that, I'm really enjoying. I'm having fun with this. I hope everyone had fun here, and I hope the audience enjoyed this as well. And I'd love to keep going. And as chair of the day, I have to make sure we all get a little break. So we are now going to take another break.